All right, I'm looking at the clock. It looks like it's 10 a.m. and a couple things. I sent out a couple of Blackboard announcements. I think I sent them last night about this week. Remember, this week is the exam. And remember, I talked last week that I would allow for this week both of our live virtual lecture sessions are review for anything you guys want me to go back over. So really, you're gonna let me know today what you need some help with. So I know we got 15 minutes, so I decided to make it 2 review sessions if you need it. So I'm not sure how many people will log in today. Whoever's in here, just let me know what areas you'd like me to focus on. I'll go to it. I can either go back and look at some of the Connect homework problems in any of the chapters 4, 5, or 6. And I also have some of the practice test questions that I can go over with any of you to help you get ready for this test. But remember, the exam is available right now. You have until Sunday, November 8th, this coming Sunday, to get it submitted. You can do it at any time during the week. Including right now, for those that maybe aren't logged in today, they might be taking the exam right now, although I looked earlier, nobody had started it just yet. But just remember, today and Wednesday, whatever questions you have, you'll let me know. And if there are no questions or anything, just again, this is about you letting me know what you need some help with. But this week is, again, the exam. And then just to kind of give you a heads up, next week, we'll be getting into the course project. So we'll probably spend at least one day. I'll show you where it's at. I'll kind of show you how to do the worksheet, and it's a comprehensive accounting cycle problem. But in any case, so I'm looking at who we've got today. It looks like we've got Ed, Christian, and Rosie. Got 3 of us. Are there any questions, anything in specific that you'd like me to address? You can unmic yourself, just ask freely, and we'll go from there. Can everybody hear me, by the way? I've got my headset just to make sure everybody's, if I'm coming in clear. If I'm not, let me know. But today is your day. I will work whatever you want me to work. There are no new concepts to cover. And having said that, since right now there's only 3, I'm just going to wait to see if anybody else logged in. You guys have to participate and let me know what you need some help with. And if you don't need any help or something, then feel free to go back and study. But this is, you guys got to let me know what you need some help with. I have problems enough I can work, but I've covered everything. I've got several videos, but at this point, it's you let me know if there's anything in particular, chapter 4, chapter 5, or chapter 6, anything you'd like for me to cover.
Yeah, I don't know if you saw the chat, but As of right now, I don't have any questions because I still have to go back and watch some of the recorded lectures.
Okay, that's fine. Because there's nothing new today. Again, today is for me to review and help anybody that needs any help. I actually am devoting today and Wednesday for anybody who needs extra help. Think of it as like basically a personal study session, but the caveat is you have to let me know specifically. You're showing me that you've done the work up to this point and you don't know what's going on, you need some help. That's what I'm here to do this week. Because theoretically, realistically, I could have scheduled it. You have to take the test actually right now, but I'm trying to be a little more flexible, being in this pandemic. That if we were like meeting in person, typically what we would do is if this was an exam day, you'd be in class taking the exam actually right now. So maybe part of the benefit, maybe it's not a benefit because sometimes it's good to have deadlines, but I'm allowing today and Wednesday just for any open questions. I will cover anything you guys have questions about. And of course, you got the study guide. Let me know if you don't know that you haven't seen the study guide. It's all ready to go, but I'm just here to assist today. I'm not covering, there's nothing new to cover. So at this point, just let me know in particular if there is anything. If there's not, then that's fine too. And if it's better, sometimes that's why right now I've only got 2 people in here. A lot of people last week, I think they're either studying or they're probably getting ready to take the test today even.
Okay, well, I'll make sure to have questions for you Wednesday, and
Okay,
I'll make sure to watch the recorded lectures.
no problem. And Rosie, how about you? Do you have anything? Are we good?
At the moment, I am,
Okay.
but I'll see. I'll try to like review, and then if I do, I'll have Wednesday as well.
Okay, no problem. That's good. I don't want, like I said, I want to make sure that I'm trying to help, not, sometimes it's good to kind of go back if you haven't had a chance to do some of the review, maybe go and work some of the practice exam questions, maybe go back over a few concepts, and then maybe take some notes if there's something that just you'd like me to repeat or review again. Wednesday might be a better day for some people, keeping the fact that this is a Monday, how Mondays go sometimes, but yeah, if that's fine, if you don't feel like you have anything yet, but you might have something on Wednesday, that's fine as well. Like I said, I'm gonna stay online here for probably at least a half an hour just to make sure nobody else logs in, because I'm trying to make sure I catch everybody. But I mean, I'll log in again right at 10 a.m. on Wednesday as well. And again, I'm here to help anybody who has any questions.
Okay. Or we can review. We can review from like I guess like the last. What was it? Let me go back. What I have, I think like the most problem is really understanding which one is going credited and which one is going debited. On like
Is that for
like
chapter 4? Is that like a chapter 4 question?
is it? I think so. I just have like because I don't know which one it is of the names.
Let me pull up, hold on. Let me pull up something here. Give me a second. Because that sounds like that's just that's a chapter 4. Because in chapter 4 is when we introduced, well, actually, the debits and credits is really chapter 3, but we kind of continued chapter 3 and chapter 4. Let me pull up a problem here. So, in fact, I'm going to pull up a problem that it's already worked and it's got the actual correct answers. But just to kind of make a point, let me share my screen just a second. Let me get back. Hold on just a second. But let me clean my screen up just a second. I'm rearranging a couple things. Hold on just a second. All right. So this is problem 1 from your chapter 1 homework, and this is all the answers to it. But here's a problem that if you were like on the exam, for example, I think one of the exam problems is you will have to go through business transactions just like this, and you'll have to enter the appropriate debit or credit. So like if we were let me get my arrow up. So like if you just looked at this first transaction, where it says gave a cash refund of $875 to a customer because of a lost package, and it says the customer had previously paid in cash, and in this case what they're doing is they are canceling the revenue transaction. So what they're doing is the initial transaction is we would have gotten cash and it would have been a revenue item, but in this case this would just be what they call a cash refund, and they're debiting a revenue account, fees income, because it's like they're canceling the revenue, they're canceling the transaction. And the reason they're crediting cash is because they're paying the cash back to the actual customer. But in transactions like this, what you have to do is you just have to look at, read the problem. This is kind of review from chapter 3. You have to identify, remember, it's actually kind of going back even to the accounting equation. Is it an asset, liability, or equity item? Because that's, if you're following the debit and credit rule, it really goes back to, that fundamental stuff from chapters 2 and 3, where you kind of first start with the accounting equation. And I don't know if that's a good way to kind of kick this off, but that's kind of like where you need to start. Since your question is about what gets, going back, is what accounts would you recognize, right, Rosie? You're like, is it what accounts get debited or credited?
Yes.
Yeah. So I mean, these. In fact, I think, let me go to the second one. I think that's a better one to look at. Yeah, this one is typically how we usually started out the problems. And so, like for example, if I get my stylus working here. So if we were, I mean, here would be a good approach. Hold on just a second. Let me click that. All right. So if let's just focus on this first transaction. This is where you got, it says Marcus Martin invested $40,000 in cash, to start the firm. So, if we went back to just the essentials of our accounting equation, which is your assets equals your liabilities plus equity, because this is kind of like the foundation of all this. Of course, we would identify that we've got cash, which is an asset, and of course, cash is increasing. And then, of course, this one is an investment, and that would be under the capital category under the equity. Remember, there's 4 equity transactions, and of course, that's also increasing. So the premise behind a problem like this in chapter 4 is to understand that, first of all, you identify cash, because cash is going into the business, it's increasing, and it's an asset. And at this point, we all know that assets increase with debits, so that's why we would debit cash. And then, of course, we have to have an offset, and the offset would go to capital. And of course, that's going to be credited, because the rule for capital is it also increases with the credit. And if you look at the way they wrote out the entry, I'll circle it right here. Notice that, of course, in accounting rules, they want you to always put your debits first and then put your credits. And of course, they want you to indent. You don't have to really worry about the indent, because even on the exam, it will indent for you. But they do want you to recognize that cash will be increased. It'll be debited first, so write that first, and then you will credit a capital for that 40,000. So that's just kind of like, as you kind of go back and review these, you might want to start first by thinking about the equation. But when it comes to the debit and the credit rules, just go back over my notes where I gave you, like, for example, I like to look at it from T accounts. So if we said you got your assets, you got debits is your debit and credit. Remember, the rule is assets increase with debits and they decrease with credit. So it's really about, recognizing the accounts, and then you have to classify them. And then when I say classify, that means put them under a category, whether it's an asset, a liability, or equity item, and then just follow the debit and credit rule, whether it's increasing or decreasing. And of course, that's why I said with chapter 4, for some people who struggle in chapter 4, it was maybe because chapter 3 they still didn't get, because chapter 3 really introduced all these debit and credit rules. So every chapter at this point just kind of like builds on each other. So maybe a good suggestion would be to go back over some of these problems and practice them, write down this equation, and then just study your answers, because you should all have your answers to this and connect. The system set up that even after the due date you can go in and look at what you'd submitted and look at the correct answers as well. But that would be my suggestion on this one, on this concept. If you're struggling a little bit with what accounts, is you really just, I would say this is a good problem to practice and review. and then you just have to do some study. I mean, it's really just about, there's no tricks to it. There's just, you have to put some time into it, and it's just a little bit of repetition. Rosie, was that an issue even back in chapter 3? Am I still coming in?
Yeah, it was.
Was it?
But I guess I just need to like just study it more.
Okay. Why don't you go through a problem or two, and then like come back on Wednesday and to see where you're at on that?
Yeah.
And it might be something I can pinpoint. And even throughout the week, you know, because we only meet a couple days a week, you might even want to schedule a session with the tutor. Sometimes they might come at it from a different approach than what I might, and that might make more sense to you. But that could be an also avenue. And of course, you've got pretty much, if your plan is to take the test Saturday or Sunday, you know, you could use this whole week to kind of, you know, go back and do some more practice and get yourself ready. So that would be my suggestion on that. So, okay. Looks like we've got a couple others, Anton and Ian. Like I said, I'm just reviewing. I'm taking any questions about any of the 3 chapters that are on this exam. And so just let me know what questions you might have, you know, any issues. On this problem, we were just reviewing a concept of accounts that be, you know, the debit and credit concept, and what accounts get debited and what accounts get credited, which is a chapter 4 concept. Rosie, did you want me to look at more of this problem? I could do that if you'd like me to go through more of this, just for some repetition on, if you'd like, let me know.
It's okay. I can
Okay.
kind of just review it myself.
No problem. I got Antoine or Iana. Did you have any questions for me? Again, this is just open. This is like an open session. There's no new concept today. I will cover. I'll pick any problems from any concept and recap it. But you got to be specific. Let me know. Yeah.
I learned as I practice more and more about the transactions.
Okay, so again, I'm waiting for anything at all you guys have for me today or Wednesday. It's a review session, so it's hard if you haven't, you know, taken a look at some of the problems. It's kind of hard to know what to ask. That's what I'm saying. Sometimes it's almost like for a review session, you almost have to prepare for it like you're preparing for an exam. That way, as you kind of study, you kind of figure, hey, what is this? I don't understand what this means, and that's a good place to start to ask, even in a review session. Sometimes it might be helpful to go back over and look at some of the Zoom meetings, some of those recordings. But I think even more specific, the Blackboard learning modules. Every chapter, I've got an illustration on the homework, and I've got, you know, sometimes I have some textbook illustrations, and I think those are also good to go back and review. Sometimes if you get stuck on a concept, if for example, you're struggling on closing entries, go and watch my lecture video or watch a couple of my homework illustrations. Just watch it a couple times and then go back and maybe try work a problem and then take some notes from it. Sometimes that's also helpful. Oh, and Antoine, I did get your email. I haven't responded to it yet, but I'll send you an email I think you had a question on a couple of the assignments or something. I just haven't gotten back to it yet, but I did get your email, and I'll get back to you with your reply later today on that. So, but was there anything else in particular for anybody that I can help anybody with right now?
There is no way that for the homework that we took, we can see like what we missed, like what we got wrong, unless we check it at that same instant.
It won't let you
go back.
I have to go back and let me check the controls. I thought you guys could always look at those.
Because I think I had a question, but I want to see if
Now, one thing I could do, But I can only do that like in a personal Zoom meeting, because what I can always do is I can pull up your individual assignment that you submitted and then share my screen, but I can't do that with, it's the FERPA rules and confidentiality. I can't share that. I can't share your individual scores with anybody else. But if we were like just on a one-on-one Zoom meeting schedule, like a session, like an office meeting, I could always pull up your submission and then share my screen. We could take a look at it. But another thing, let me show you guys something. Let me get out of this. Let me clear this. Let me go back to Blackboard.
Oh, I see it.
Let me go to Blackboard. If you go to Blackboard, and I've got this is our Blackboard page. If you go to Learning Modules, open that up, and let's say we clicked on Chapter 4 module. If you page down, you'll see that I've got my lecture video, and then I've got some textbook illustrations. So this might help if you want to go back and review those concepts of what accounts get debit or credit. This is a good illustration. I've got a video there. And then notice it says Chapter 4 Homework Illustration Connect. What I did is I went through every single problem that you had to submit in Connect, and I recorded it on my screen, and I made comments and illustrations on how to work each of the problems. So that's not quite as good as maybe something you've actually submitted, but that's definitely not bad if you just want to go back and do some review, just to kind of remember what we did back in Chapter 4. But I'll go back later today. I'll check those settings to see if I can't somehow. I thought I had the settings set up so that you can review it, that, basically after you submitted it, even after the due date, you should be able to go in and review what you submitted. Let me check. In fact, let me check that right now. Let me just check my policies on the homework. Let me see if I can find something where I can edit that policy real quick, and then I can update that later on. But let me just
No, yeah, I can go back. I'm looking at it. I'm looking at it right now.
Oh, really? You can access it?
Yeah.
Okay, that's good, because I thought I had it.
Yeah, I'm looking at it. I think what I struggle the most on that would be like the analyze, for some reason.
Oh, on the homework part of it?
Yeah.
Let me. Do you know which particular homework problem it was? I can pull that up.
So I didn't get the number 5 and the number 7.
Hold on. So it was Chapter 5. I'm sorry.
No, it was Chapter 6, but question 5 and question 7.
Let me pull that up. So Chapter 6 homework, and then it was question number 5.
Yeah.
Okay, let me pull that up. Okay, and let me share my screen.
Well, that wasn't the analyze, right? That was like the required number 2.
Well, but it's
kind of like an analyze.
You still had to analyze it to answer it. Hold on, let me a second. So let's check this one. That's a good problem. Here's my stylus. Oh, here it is. All right. So, okay, on a problem like this, it says on December 31st, income summary has a debit balance of $222. So what I would do when I get a problem like this is I think the concept of using a T account to do analysis is really, really good in accounting, because it gives you a visual. Remember, accounting is a very abstract concept. So the more visuals you can get in terms of how to read a problem, it's going to help you solve it. So anytime they start to give me these balances, what I would always start off by doing is just draw a T account. So if I drew out income summary, because they start off saying income summary, so let's draw this. If I draw a T account like this, I do that, and it says it has a debit balance of $222,000 after revenue of $234 and expenses of $456 were closed into the account. So what I would do is I'm going to put revenue right here. That's $234. And then I'm going to put the expenses of $456 on the debit side. So remember, the debit side would have represented the expenses, and the credit side would have represented the revenue. And so at that point, what you could then do is, okay, the balance that they're saying 222, this is how they would have gotten that balance, is by just taking the difference. And of course, there's more debits than credits. So the balance is on the debit side. That means this represents what they call a net loss because your expenses were more than your revenues. So then they say the drawing has a debit balance of 24 and the capital account has a credit of 48,000. So what they do is they give you all this information, right? So then you go down to the requirements, and the first requirement says, record the journal entries necessary to complete closing the accounts. Well, so in this problem, we were really doing step 3. They've already done steps 1 and 2 of your closing. So at this point, they want you to first close out income summary. So if income summary has a debit balance, we're going to have to credit income summary to make this go to 0. So if you look at the actual first entry, what they did is they credited income summary. There's the 222. And of course, they debited the capital. That's where you're going to close it out to. So that would be your first one. Then the second one, you have to close out drawing. And of course, if drawing, I'll write this out just as my illustration. If drawing has a debit balance of 24,000 and we want that to go to 0, we're going to have to, of course, put a credit there. So that's what they did. They credited drawing for 24, and of course, you debit capital for 24. And of course, at that point, you'd close out the drawing. Now, if I looked at the capital account, because they want to know, the second part says, what's the balance of capital? Again, anytime you're asked for balances, and I can tell you right on this exam, there's probably at least a couple questions where you'll have to calculate a balance of an account. So I would just write it out a T account, because remember, this is it's an open book exam. I'd have scrap paper ready. And so anytime they're asking for balances, I would go with the T account approach. So they said capital had a credit balance of 348. So I'd write that there. This was before the closing. And then of course, you're going to have to post these 2 entries. So capital would get a debit of 222 and a debit of 24. So at that point, there's my writing's not very good here. So at that point, you'd have to calculate the new balance for capital. And of course, to get that, of course, you would just take the 348 and you'd have to subtract out 222 and then subtract out the 24,000. In this case, you're still going to have a credit balance, but that would be the answer to how you would get part 2. So if I went to requirements of part 2 and they came up with 102,000, that would be your balance for capital. But really, just in going over this question, this was just where they didn't just say record all your 4 closing entries. They kind of essentially started on step 3 of what we were doing in chapter 6. You had to do entry number 3 and then entry number 4. Okay, so that was a little bit different approach. It's still the same type of problem, but you had to kind of think back and think about, well, what were the first 2 steps? So that's why I think in a problem like this, it's helpful to go back to that T account approach to help organize how to solve the problem. All right, does that help any?
Yes.
All right, now I think you said, was it question 7? That you had a question on?
Yeah.
This one, was it 6 or 7? I forget.
It was 7.
Oh, now on this one, this one would probably take you a good 20, I would guess, I say minimum 20 minutes to work it out. But was there any aspect of this problem that you had a question about?
It was on the analyze.
Okay, just on the analyze. Okay, there's a lot of people that asked about this one. I had a lot of emails about this one. So when they say, it says, what total debits were posted to the general ledger to complete all closing entries for the month of December? So the way they got that 112.4 is you have to go back to your journal and look at the closing entries. So the journal is right here, and your closing entries would have been starting, I'll just draw a line, from number 4, 5, 6, and 7. 1, 2, and 3 are your adjusting entries. So 4, 5, 6, and 7, you simply just have to add up your debits. So you take 53,200 plus the 22,360 plus the 30,840 plus the 6,000. So if you add these four numbers right there, 53.2 plus 22,360 plus 3840 plus 6,000, if you add up these four numbers, you should come up with that answer, which is 112,400. Okay. Now, let me make a comment on this question. I think that's a bizarre question. I mean, I didn't write this question. I like the problem, but I have no idea why that's even a relevant question. I have no idea why whoever came up with that question. To me, a better question would be, what's the updated capital balance? But I have no idea. I do not ask you, I believe, any test questions for you to have to go back and do that. But I think they were just wanting you to see, do you understand, can you read a problem and know where the debits are? I'm trying to get into the author's mind, whoever wrote that particular question. I don't think it's a really a great question. Again, I think a better question would be, did capital increase or decrease after closing entries? I think that's a much more relevant question than say, how many debits did you add up? But so be it. But just for you to answer this question, you just have to go to that part of the journal and just add up those four numbers. That's what they were wanting. All right, so again, that was chapter 6. All right, anything else? Any other questions? And I hope that helps a little bit.
That did.
But I think I had at least 3 or 4 student emails about what to do. Nobody could figure out what they were asking. They didn't quite understand.
I was trying, and I was like, why I can't?
But I think the key to that question is right here, because it says, what total debits were posted to the general ledger to complete, and they just want you to look at just the closing journal entries. I think if they'd actually said closing journal entries, that might have made more sense to people. I don't know. Sometimes these accounting writers, they just get almost too comfortable with the writing that they forget that maybe when somebody sees closing entry, that might confuse them. It's closing journal entry for the month of December. But of course, if you go back to the actual journal, they actually made you record 3 adjusting entries as well. So I'm guessing, I bet most people probably try to add up all the debits and they got the wrong answer. That's what I'm guessing happened. But they just want you to add up the last 4. So.
Okay, thank you.
Cool. All right, questions. Just keeping them coming. Whatever you have for me, whatever chapter 4, 5, or 6, let me know. Anything you'd like me to go back in and look at. Because at this point, you know, it's really, we're getting ready to take the test. So I'll pull up any of the homework problems, anything you'd like me to look at. I hope my voice is coming in a little bit better. I think since I start to use this headphone, I don't have to kind of stand like 2 inches in front of my microphone on my laptop, but I hope it's a little bit clearer. I think you guys and my Monday night class finally.
It's way clear.
Is it much better? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's worth the $25 I spent on it over at Office Depot. Give me the cheapest one. I don't need Bluetooth. In fact, I don't like the Bluetooth. It seems like anytime it's wireless, there's always connection issues. This one it's plugged right into my USB. So, but let me go back to the home page. And if you don't have anything, don't feel bad. I'm just, like I said, some of you may not know what to expect today. I mean, today it's just I'm reviewing, but I'm more interested in you telling me what you'd like me to look at rather than me just saying, hey, let's go look at this. I don't want to waste your time. I want to make sure I'm efficient with you because, I only get you 50 minutes today and Wednesday. So sometimes it might be better on Wednesday. Say, oh, I went back and looked at this and I still don't get it. That's fine. We'll take a look at it again. But I don't want to I want to make sure that they always used to tell us in school, you know, focus on your weaknesses. Not if you got something down, you're good. And I remember when I, you know, was studying for the CPA exam, of course, they always say study your weaknesses, but when you have a lot, say you have a lot of weaknesses, that's a lot of study. But I used to remember when I would study, I worked practice test questions, and I would even study questions that I got correct, because sometimes even though I might have gotten an answer correct in my practice, when I'd go and look at their solution, sometimes I still read the solution. I wasn't convinced that I really thought that I got it right for the right reason. So, and sometimes that happens. Sometimes I just guessed and got lucky, and I would rather miss it because I want to know if I don't know something. I don't want to get something right and think, oh, I'm good. I'm going to the next. I'm not going to worry about this concept. And then of course it comes back and it gets me later. And accounting it's all about, you know, reading and comprehension and wording. One word can change a whole problem. Has anybody looked at those smart book? I called them smart book videos, but those are all optional. Does anybody try to use those for learning as a resource too? Those are optional, but I put them out there because it's extra stuff that comes with your package that you bought with the access code. Does anybody find those useful? If you've used them? And trust me, I know if something's optional, they always say people you don't do option. If it's optional, you don't do it. But I put them out there just to see if anybody wanted to use them. Sometimes if they look at my videos and, you know, if mine stuff's not making any sense, go look at some of their, and sometimes their stuff helps.
I was using them in the beginning, but then I stopped using it.
Time is it time? It's a lot of time, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm always a little leery of putting too much stuff out there. I've always felt like, you know, information overload is bad because if you have too much stuff, then you might get overwhelmed, and then sometimes people just say, I don't know what to do. So that's why I always say just the default is go to Blackboard, watch my stuff, and then if you do not get it, maybe then go and look on the Connect site and see if they got some extra stuff out there. But I feel like my stuff is pretty good, but you know, sometimes it doesn't, you know, sometimes I might miss something too. But.
For the exam,
Yes.
for the study guide, is it just what you put out there, like, oh, that what it may consist of?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So when I wrote this study guide, what I do is, because you guys got a brand new exam, because this is the first time I've used this edition. I've used the up to the 4th edition. This was the 5th edition. And so all the exams this semester are brand new. So after I wrote the exam, of course, there's 35 multiple choice, 2 points each, so there's 70 points, and then there's 3 problems. 2 hours, it's in Connect. But then what I did is I then went back and looked at all of the questions that I put in the exam, and I took some notes and I put that into the form of a study guide. So as you're looking at the concepts that are covered, this really isn't, I'm not just making this stuff up. This is literally after I wrote the test, going back and say, okay, what are all the different things that I am testing you on that you need to make sure you know what to do? And that's all these bullet points contain pretty much spot on what's on the exam. And I even mentioned last week in terms of the problems, because this is 3 chapters, you will get 1 problem from each chapter. So you'll get a problem dedicated to just chapter 4, where you are either recording journal entries and posting to a ledger. In chapter 5, you'll get a problem where you have to record adjusting entries. And then in chapter 6, you'll get a problem that you have to do closing entries. So I chose to go this route rather than just say, okay, here's 1 long problem that covers everything here and make it worth 30 points. I say I split it among 3 different chapters. And it'll be pretty evident when you get into the exam, when you start to take the exam in terms of what chapter I'm covering. Now, the thing that's after this test, we will do a comprehensive project. I call it your course project, where we'll cover, it'll be one long problem, but you're going to do that in terms of a project setting, not an exam setting. So you'll have more time to think about the different things you're going through on the accounting cycle. But at least on this test, I feel like the 2 hours is definitely enough. It's probably at least an extra half an hour than I think that you would actually need. 35 multiple choice questions, I wouldn't think those would take you more than a half an hour. The problems, I would devote maybe 15 minutes. I'm not allocating like your time management, maybe about 15 minutes each on the problems. I feel like you should still have some time left over to kind of, check your work. But again, 35 multiple choice, 3 problems, 70% of the exam is multiple choice. Now, I was talking last week, and let me go back to my other screen. Your practice, I put out these practice test questions. Let me go back. And those practice test questions you'll find them below your chapter 13 quiz. So if I were to show you your view, if you logged into Connect to do your assignments, of course, there's the exam 2 right there. You see exam 2 is right here. Notice start date is today, due by November 8th. Just hit that begin. But if you want to do some practice questions, just go to the very bottom, and these practice questions, as exam 2 practice questions, you can work these as many times as you want. It's not going to hurt your grade. It's a practice, it's a tune-up to see what you know from each chapter. So I think there's like 59 questions. I didn't plan how many questions. I was just pulling test bank questions. Some of them are true, false, some are multiple choice. But I pulled a bunch of these. To me, this is also a good tune-up. I would practice these before you actually take the real deal. Because I'm not saying this is, they're different questions, but some of the questions on this practice are very similar to the same questions on the exam 2. In other words, it might be the same problem, but they just change the numbers. Okay, I find algorithmic type of problems to give you guys, but I would say this is also a good thing to go back and review this week. Maybe even look at it before Wednesday. If you come back on Wednesday and you want to look at some of these practice questions, I think it's probably better to attempt them. And then if you can't get them, keep working it and then make some notes. Hey, look, Jariga, could we go over practice question number 55 or whatever, because I don't understand how they're coming up with it. That'd be a good thing to talk about like in a review session. But of course, that's assuming you've already been studying and you practiced it and you still need additional help. But that's kind of a long-winded answer. I know you didn't ask for all that, but yeah, the study guide should be spot on to all the things you need to know for this test. Typically in my classes, I don't, it was done to me, but I just, years ago I decided I'm not going to do this, but years ago I was always given tests where the premise of the class is you come to class to learn, but even if there's stuff that isn't covered during class, you're still responsible for it. And so it forced you to read the book from beginning to end, and you didn't have any idea of what they might ask. And that was very difficult because if you got a test over 3 or 4 chapters, you're talking maybe over 100 pages, and there could be stuff on there that the professor didn't even cover. I had that happen to me once in grad school where we had, and everything was like an essay, written type of test in grad school. But I remember a specific test back, I still remember this is over 20 years ago, where on the exam, I was going through it. I took my own notes, I read the book, and I came to an exam question, and I didn't recognize what was going on. So I thought, well, this has to be a mistake. So I went up to the professor, and they said, nope, it's in there. Okay, fine. And I missed it. I went back and looked. It was literally the last page in the chapter. It was the one page. I for some reason, it didn't make it into my notes. I was like, dang it. And I blame myself, but I'm like, you know what? That it is what it is. But I feel like I'm going to test you on the stuff I've covered, the concepts I've covered. I think that's fair. All right, was there anything else anybody wants me to go over? I'm just trying to give you guys some hints in terms of if like I said, Wednesday is another review. Again, I'm not covering anything, I'm just taking questions, but some things you might want to think about again if you come on Wednesday is things I just told you, look at some of these exam 2 practice questions, go back. What I would do on this test is, I don't know if you did it on the first test, is I would actually write up a cheat sheet. I would summarize all of my notes from chapters 4, 5, and 6 into maybe 1 or 2 pages. And what happens is when you do that, when you're rewriting your notes, you're basically writing like a flashcard. You're studying. It's gonna stick with your mind. And so then if you can organize those, take some notes, and go back and study it, and then you can even use that on the exam. If you come to a concept on closing entries or adjusting entries, just refer to your notes. Oh, this is what this means, and then use your notes to help you get through the exam. It's just like if you were on the job and you had practice notes, Post-its to tell you what to do each day, whatever. It's kind of like that. You still have to solve the problem, but at least you have a resource around you to help you to solve that problem. All right, was there anything else? I know, Antoine, you said you're going to go back and practice some stuff. Taylor, did you have anything that you wanted me to look at? I know we got about 6 minutes left. All right. Last thoughts. We got 5 minutes, but was there anything else? If not, you might be able to, maybe more efficient is to go back and think about some things from any of these 3 chapters, and then again come back on Wednesday and specifically let me know. And Antoine, in a minute, I'll go back into my Outlook and I will update your stuff and Connect. I think you had a question about one of your Connect assignments, and I'll go ahead and update as well, and I'll send you an email on that in a minute.
All right, thanks. I appreciate it.
Cool. All right. So guys, let me wrap this up then. And I got to go back and I got to do something with both of your due dates on both of your assignments. And then just like I said, that the best way I can help is for you to let me know what you need help with, and whatever chapter. So if you can do that, think of that as almost like an assignment for Wednesday. And then that way, think of it, do this, act like you're preparing for the test as if it was on Wednesday. And then think about some of the things that you just feel like you're not comfortable with or not confident with. And let me know if you'd like me to go back over another problem in any chapter. Taylor,
question.
Yes.
Could you start? We can't start and stop this test, can we?
I believe.
You know how you save? You can hit save and then go back to it.
Let me check. Let me go back and I got so many different learning management systems. I think on the Connect, I think you have to take it in one setting. I don't think I have that option where I think once you sit down and once you begin, I think if you exit, And
I'm not sure why on Connect that you say, I think we have 2 attempts, but it only lets you do 1.
On the quizzes, you should have 2.
Yeah.
You should have 2 attempts. Like, let me check, like if I check my policies on let me just check the last quiz. If I look at my policy on the last quiz, yeah, I've got it where I have the default setup. You should have 2 attempts on each quiz. And so if that's not the case, email me, let me know. I can always go back and look at the setting, but there could be a setting issue. But I just check right now. I have all my default setting for all the quizzes is 2 attempts, but on the exam, it's only 1 attempt. Now, if I look at, I'm looking at my exam policy real quick. I'm just looking at the policies. You get 120 minutes. The setup is you can't print anything because, you know, it's a test. You know, we try to keep that on the, I'm sure people have figured out a way to copy the answer somehow, but you get 1 attempt. You don't get the feedback until after the due date. So once you've submitted the exam, once you've submitted the exam, you'll get your score, but you just won't know what you missed. But then after the due date, which is Sunday, you'll be able to go back there and look and see, you know, what you submitted and what the correct and what the incorrect answers were. Yeah, but in this one, they don't tell me anything about save. Like, so what I would suggest you do is once you start the exam, that's your exam time. I would not, if you log out, I don't think you'll be able to get back in. I don't think Connect lets you do that. And so I have another class that I teach with my accounting lab. It's for my managerial accounting class, and they do have a save later option. But this, for some reason, this system is different. They don't let you do it. So my suggestion would be once you start the exam, and you got 2 hours, just devote your next 2 hours to get it done. I would not try to log out because I think it kicks you out once you do that. All right, guys, it's almost 10:50. Let me make a note. So I will address both of your issues on your extensions. I'll get that set up here in a moment. And then on Wednesday, just let me know. If you guys come on a Wednesday, I'm calling that review session number 2. Just let me know and whatever you guys would like me to look at. All right. All right, final thoughts before I'm going to wrap this up. Any final thoughts, Antoine or Taylor, on anything else?
No, thank you.
Okay. All right. Let me wrap this up, and then Antoine, I'll send you an email in a minute, and then Taylor, I'll get yours updated as well. All right.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Have a good one. All right.
Bye-bye.